What's up, everybody? Welcome to Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast, Episode 2. I want to talk to you guys today about these brand new distance world records that were set over the last few days and kind of weigh in, give you guys my opinion on wind-aided distance records and altitude-aided distance records, that sort of thing. And, just kind of keep the discussion going. A lot of people talking about this on the internet as it is. I also wanted to open up another forum for people to discuss this down in the comment section below. So let's get into it. I'm going to reference a few different articles from allthingsdiscgolf.com, so go check them out for some of these articles if you want to know a little bit more about this stuff, perhaps. But I'm going to give you most of the details here. So in 2014, Simon Lizotte set the world record at 863.5 feet in the high desert. And then on the 26th, which was Saturday, he was the first to throw over 900 feet, breaking his own record with the exact same Blizzard Boss that he used for the other record by throwing 903.9 feet, 275.5 meters. Interesting stuff. One interesting thing to note is that's when it lands. So if it skips forward or rolls or anything like that, that's not included. It's just as long as it's in the air from release until it lands and hits the ground, that's where they mark it. And then on that same day, Jennifer Allen and Juliana Korver set new world records for the women. Jennifer Allen set the overall women's distance record at 568.6 feet. If you've never seen Jennifer Allen throw, she's got really interesting, awesome form. I like watching her throw a lot. Her reach back and her weight shift is like amazing, and it's pretty interesting to watch her throw. She clearly has an arm, setting the world record. That's amazing. Congrats to her. Juliana Korver set the women's 45 years old plus division record at 425.5 feet. Also a pretty substantial throw, so that's impressive. All right, so then moving forward to what was this? I believe Sunday, right? Let's check this out again. Or Monday. This article's from Monday. I'm not sure exactly when this happened. Saturday afternoon through 900 feet. Yes. Okay. So, with wind whipping at the distance course outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, David Wiggins shattered the world record with a new world record throw of 1,108.92 feet, 338 meters with a 154 gram R Pro Boss. So that is insane. 1,100 feet. So that's over 200 feet longer than the other record, is it not? Yeah, over 200 feet longer than the record set a couple days before by Simon. Now, on this same day, Simon also threw over 1,000 feet. He was the first to break the 1,100 foot mark. He was actually the second person of the day to break the 1,000 foot threshold. Simon Lizotte broke his own world record with a throw of 1,030 feet with with another Blizzard Boss earlier that day. The record didn't last long as Wiggins took distance competitions to a new level and goes 1,100 feet for the world record. So that's insane. I mean, 1,100 feet, that's nuts. And the fact that it's 200 feet longer than the other world record set 2 days ago, I mean, it's a pretty obvious indication that the wind has a huge amount to do with this. I've heard in the past that people... before we get any further with that, let me give some more credit here. Austin Spradlin sets the under 16 distance record, throwing 958 feet, which is insanity. 16 years old, Austin Spradlin with a Air Ballista given to him by Garrett Gurthie throws 958 feet. That's a crush for a kid that age. Be interested to see how far that young man throws outside of the desert and without the wind and stuff, he must still have a huge arm. So I've heard in the past people say that beyond a certain speed of wind, it actually becomes detrimental to the throw, and there's some type of butter zone there where they can throw the farthest given a certain wind speed. I don't see how that could possibly be the case considering the evidence from this weekend's competition. Considering that the wind was significantly stronger and Simon broke his own world record throwing over 1,000 feet, and then Wiggins broke the world record from 2 days ago before that by 200 feet. I mean, that's a huge difference. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the wind has a ton to do with this. Also, the altitude. A lot of people don't mention the altitude. I've thrown in outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, which is a much higher altitude than it is here in Portland for most of the courses I play, or all of the courses I play, pretty much. It's a much higher altitude. Your discs are more overstable at altitude, and they noticeably hang up in the air for longer. Maybe the altitude's playing a big factor in this as well. 100%. The wind could be dead, and you're still on a big flat open open dry lake bed or whatever it is in the desert at high altitude. You could still probably throw farther than you can at sea level. Even without the wind. So really, the conditions were optimal. They're clearly aiding this whole experience. But here's the thing: you could say, "Oh, with that much wind, anybody could throw that far." Well, no. Clearly, anybody could not throw that far because you're still talking about Simon Lizotte and David Wiggins, two people that have already owned world distance records. I don't know if you've ever seen David Wiggins or Simon throw in person. It is insanity. The amount of energy those dudes put on discs is insane. Garrett Gurthey is the same way. I mean, Garrett Gurthey looks like he's throwing a 100-foot approach and it goes 450 feet. I mean, the dude just puts energy on the disc like nothing you've ever seen. And until you see people throw like at a high level in person, you watch all the YouTube videos you want. You have no idea what it looks like for people to actually throw that far. There's a hole at Milo MacGyver, which I was playing the other day, and I remember from the Beaver State Fling this last year, Will Schustrick throws on a frozen rope dead straight. I mean, unbelievable, dead straight, perfect golf shot. Soars up over the top of the basket. I think that hole is like 500 feet or so. So just on a frozen rope golf shot, not like ripping over a huge flex, like a hyzer flip, that, just dead straight all the way, goes soaring over the top of the bucket. These guys have unbelievable power, and that's what's going into it. So no, obviously not anybody could go out and set these records. There's also a completely different technique for throwing for distance when you're actually using the wind, and it's a whole different style of throwing than a golf throw. You're throwing it more up into the wind, allowing the wind to grab it and move it on down the line. It's not like you're just trying to get it to stand up on a hyzer flip and carry as long as you can, or you're trying to rip something over on Anheuser and let it flex out a big line. It's a whole different ball game out there. It's a completely different thing. It's almost like an entirely different sport, really. So, while I fully understand that you would say that it's kind of unfair and maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't make sense. Here's the thing. It's a world record. That means it can take place anywhere in the world, right? I mean, it's a world record. It's not a... Clearly, you should be able to attempt to break the world record under any conditions that exist in this world. It's a world record. So, those are the conditions that are optimal to break that record, and that's what they're using to optimize their chances of doing so. And it worked. It worked great. So, what's the problem with that? Now, what are you going to say? There needs to be a distance world record, with no wind or no more than 8 to 10 mile an hour winds and at sea level and all that kind of stuff. Then there's all these asterisks next to it and all that sort of thing. I'm not opposed to that, and people say, why don't they do that sort of thing? They do. It's called the distance competition at the World Championships. They do it every year. There's a distance competition at the World Championships, often not at high altitude when that's taking place, and these guys still go out there and they put on a show. Now, I've looked at a couple of these numbers just to compare and see the differences. So in the 2013 PDGA Pro Worlds Long Drive competition results, this one was in Indiana, I believe. So let's see here. Women's Grandmasters, men's Grandmasters. Masters men, Phil Arthur threw 504 feet. Patrick Brown, 426. Johnny McRae, 426. Which I think is funny, because, I don't know. There could be a whole nother discussion on the distance people think they're able to throw out there on the course. And, I use this driver up to about 450. Oh, yeah? You're throwing at 450. Johnny McRae in a distance competition's throwing 426, but you're throwing your T-Birds 450? Yeah, okay, sure. Female Pro Open, Paige Pierce won this competition at throwing 411 feet. Again, at the 2013 Pro Worlds. Colleen Thompson, 345. Vanessa Van Deventer, 339. I don't know that name. I've never heard that name before. And then here, Men's Pro Open top finishers. David Wiggins Jr., current world record holder we just discussed, threw 558 feet. And Garrett Gurthie, 552. Brian Earhart, 552. Christian Sandstrom, who I believe has also held a world record at one point or another. Correct? Isn't he the one that held the record with a DX Valkyrie for a while? 522. So that gets into a whole nother discussion about people and their ridiculous distances that they claim to throw out there on the course, saying that, they max out at 500 feet or whatever. Meanwhile, these, guys like Garrett Gurthie and David Wiggins on flat ground are throwing 558. Not buying it. I know what it looks like when those guys throw in person, and you're not throwing your nuke 500 feet. I'm sorry. You're not doing that. I'm really not buying it based on this kind of, maybe, downhill, maybe with some wind again, some kind of aid or something like that. But a lot of the distances people claim to throw out there on the internet and in the bag videos and stuff like that are just really silly. So here's something that's really interesting, and this is something that I've been citing for years as what I consider to be incredibly impressive and might actually be among the farthest pure throws that have ever taken place in a distance competition. This is video by our buddy Terry Miller, the disc golf guy. Vlog number 116. He's talking to distance champion Jeremy Colling at the 2012 Worlds in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Jeremy threw 693 feet. So, this is North Carolina, so it wasn't high altitude. They say in the video that it was pretty calm. Not very, it was kind of changing between a light headwind or a light tailwind, not a lot of wind going on. And it was about 10 foot of distance change or elevation change in the throw, I guess, downhill slightly. But 10 feet, really not much. Throwing 693 feet. That, to me, is one of the most impressive throws that have ever happened. So if you guys are wondering, what some of these top distance ranges are without the wind, I would say I really can't think of another shot I've ever heard of traveling quite as far as that, And it kind of opens up another discussion is, does it matter? Does any of this stuff really matter? I mean, there's so much more to disc golf about than just being able to throw far. Garrett Gurthie, sure, he crushes. He throws super far. And I'm not saying he's bad at other aspects of disc golf, but when's the last time you heard of him winning a big tournament? David Wiggins Jr., he's a great player. He's been playing forever. He's really good. Obviously, he throws super far. He can throw a putter farther than most people will ever throw anything. Just like Simon. Simon can throw a putter farther than I'll probably be able to throw any disc ever. But, Simon's probably the best overall player in terms of winning big tournaments, out of these big distance guys. Wiggins, he's won some big tournaments out there. but he's not a name you see consistently in the top 4, top 5 in these bigger tournaments. I'm not really sure how much him and Garrett tour these days. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not trying to say anything bad about him. I'm just saying, what does it really all matter if you can throw a disc 1,000 feet in the high desert with the wind and stuff like that? Is that really that impressive? And then if you're gonna talk about a guy like Simon Lizotte, Simon puts his long throwing power into play in golf all the time. He can take lines that other people can't take in order to try to shave off strokes. He can, eagle really long holes and just get close, as can Paul McBeth. Like a lot of people, I would love to see how far Paul could throw out in the desert, but you know what? He's not concerned about that. He's probably at home putting, jamming in 30-footers, 100 in a row, getting ready to go out there and win another big tournament and continue to be the best player in the world. He's not worried about going out there and throwing distance. And I believe it's Ken Climo would call the other side games reindeer games, all the skill shot and the putting competition and all that stuff. Not really that concerned about that. You know what? He wants to go win worlds, and that's what he was doing. 12 times he did that in the Open division. At least he's won some more in other divisions, Masters now. But you know what I'm saying? What does it really matter? It's interesting. It's cool to hear. I think Simon Lizotte's world distance mini throwing record was like over 500 feet. That's absolutely insane too. That's really funny. Nobody's really mentioned that. I don't know if he tried to set a new mini world record as well out there in the desert, or if that was an option to him. But yeah, here's the thing. I'm sure a lot of people will be really interested in this, and hopefully it happens. Let's do another distance competition somewhere at sea level in an area where it's not super windy. Have these guys really go at it again and see what happens. Again, I'm sure it'll happen. There'll be some type of a distance competition in Emporia for the Worlds this year. There always is some kind of Worlds distance competition. But maybe they should have another dedicated distance competition, not like a side game at a major tournament, but its own thing, but somewhere where it's just flat ground, sea level, and see where these guys stack up. I think that would be really interesting. Maybe somebody can throw that together just to kind of, for no other reason than to just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Satisfy the curiosity of so many of the disc golfers out there. It'd be interesting. But yeah, congratulations to all the world distance record holders. It's cool stuff. It's amazing. It's a totally different thing. It's basically like its own little mini subdivision of disc golf. It's really not all that pertinent to disc golf so much, just using the same equipment to set an interesting record. Here's some other interesting numbers I just take a look at here for the 2014 PDGA Pro Disc Golf Worlds field events. This one took place very close to home, Blue Lake Regional Park here in Oregon, Northeast Marine Drive, which is right by the river there, so it's real close to sea level, and it is just a big open field, flat ground, very minimal wind generally out here in Oregon. Definitely nothing even remotely close to what they were dealing with in the desert. Let's take a look at some of the numbers here. Pro Masters, Simon Feasey through 460. Patrick Brown, 438. Then we got into the ladies, women's, female pro open distance competition. Paige Pierce won, throwing 450. That's a pretty big rip. Ragna threw 405. Melody Bailey, 336. Interesting. So, who do you think won this one? It was David Wiggins. David Wiggins threw 657. So, if you're trying to get an idea of how far David Wiggins can throw without the aid of the altitude and the wind, here he is posting a 660-foot throw, thereabout. But think about that. That's basically half. That's real close to half as far. Give or take a couple hundred feet. I mean, that's a huge... The difference between 657 and 1,108, that's a huge difference. I mean, that's insanity. Obviously, that alone, gives you a pretty good idea. That's not saying that 657 is as far as he can possibly throw without the wind. I mean, that's just another number we have on record in competition that we can use to kind of judge this. His 1100-foot throw could have just been the best throw he's ever thrown by far. That's clearly a possibility, and it was obviously in some way, because it set the world record, a world record that's kind of unlikely to be broken, I would say, anytime too soon. But you never know, I guess. But 1,100 feet is insane. But yeah, here he is on flat ground, minimal wind, close to sea level, throwing about 660, so nearly half of that. Dion Arlen, who's got a cannon, through 595. Chris Becker, who I believe I ran into at MacGyver the other day, through 588. Simon Lizotte, 585 in this particular instance here in Portland. Drew Gibson, 564. I don't know if Drew was out at the desert. I know he's got a huge cannon. Jeremy Colling, who I'm almost certain was definitely not out in the desert, he threw 561. We talked about him with his 693-foot shot out in Charlotte recently. That was pretty unbelievable stuff from 2012. Talked about that earlier. Nico Lacastro, 558. Henrik Johansson, 555, and it goes on down from there. So, Garrett Gurthey's down here somewhere, 525 in 11th place. So, yeah, I think that was interesting. I kind of stumbled upon that, so I figured I'd chop that back into this episode and just kind of tag it on the end here. Interesting stuff. Here's something else that just popped into my head. Innova is giving out a bounty, right? They're giving out this $10,000 bounty. Does Simon get one because he set the world record the other day? Or does it have to be just the world record that stands at the end of the competition? Does he get two because he set two different world records and then Wiggins broke the second one on the same day? I'm guessing he gets nada, is basically what I'm guessing. He's not going to get anything. And Wiggins and Jennifer Allen are going to get, their checks, I'm assuming, because their records stood after the tournament. Here's another thing that I don't think anybody has mentioned. Here's some breaking news here. We really dig in deep here on the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast, and we get to the interesting angles that no one else has really considered. Here's something that I'm thinking about. Simon Lizotte set the world record with an Innova Blizzard Boss. He did it a couple years ago, and the one that he set earlier this week was also with that exact same Blizzard Boss. Now, when Simon is out on the disc golf course, as per his contract with UC and Discmania, he throws exclusively Discmania discs. There is no Innova in his bag whatsoever, and that is absolutely by contract. I remember that they discussed this on Smashbox, that Simon is not allowed to throw Innova based on his contract and throws purely Discmania discs. Now, most of the players on either Team Discmania or Team Innova can throw any of that stuff. I believe they can throw Millennium as well because it's all under the Innova umbrella. It's all molded by Innova, so it's all good. Obviously Paul Macbeth throws multiple Discmania molds and all that stuff, even though he's Innova's flagship guy, of course. But how is it that Simon isn't allowed to throw a Boss as per his contract on the golf course, but he is able to throw one in the desert to try to set world distance records? I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody else has mentioned that, but it kind of just popped into my head as I was doing this. I think that's an interesting side note. I wonder how that all works, If say Wiggins didn't throw, say Wiggins didn't throw a 1100 and his 1,000-foot or whatever throw stood as the world record after this competition, would they be stamping Blizzard Bosses with Simon's name even though he's not even allowed to throw that disc on the course? Interesting. Let's stop and pause and ponder that a moment. But let's move on here. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening to episode 2 of Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. As per usual, that's part of the reason I wanted to do this. Let's open up another forum for you guys to be able to discuss this sort of stuff in the comments and have a respectful conversation sharing your opinions and some interesting details if you have them. Thanks very much for the support, everybody. Congratulations to everybody setting world records. Amazing stuff. I don't see anybody throwing over 1,100 feet anytime soon, but who knows? Hopefully, those same, throwers, at least Simon and David Wiggins, will be out in Emporia and will compete in the distance competition for the Pro Worlds this year, and we could see how those numbers stack up with some different conditions. It would actually even be interesting just to see how far they could throw with strong winds, strong tailwinds, but without the aid of altitude, to see what that actually, how that factors in all this. A lot of talk about the wind, not as much talk about the altitude, but anybody who's thrown at altitude can see how that can clearly be a big part of this equation. So, yep, thanks for the support, guys. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.